Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? I am so excited for this video because we are going to be doing an eyeshadow palette tag, which I feel like I have not done one in forever, and every time I film a video like this it reminds me of the good old OG beauty YouTube days. I have never got tired of tags. I have never got tired of talking about eyeshadow palettes, so I am here for it. We're doing the eyeshadow palette tag 5000, which was created by Chic Geek. I will make sure to leave her channel link down below for you to check out, but without any further ado, let's jump on into the questions. So the very first question is a palette that you wore on a special occasion, and this is pretty easy because I mentioned it recently when I was talking about this palette in my indie palette collection video. So I'm gonna have to go with the Lois Cosmetics Meet Me in the Underworld eyeshadow palette, which is this stunning kind of greeny, pinky, grungy color story. And the reason I picked this is because I wore it the very first time that I met my boyfriend, and I had no idea that like that's how my day would end up going or anything like that. But I remember wearing like a greeny pinky look, and my sister invited me over for dinner, and I had like a bold lip on too. So I was like, okay, I'll get rid of the lip. We'll leave the eyes like a little bit more casual. Just a little eggplant parmesan dinner moment. So I felt like I wanted to tone it down a little bit. But yeah, now I will always think about this palette and that. I don't know that we had a meet cute. We basically met because my sister said, I made dinner and come over. We have a friend over, and I was like, I don't want to make dinner, so I'll be there. But yes, that was the palette that was on my eyes. So next is a palette that you love, but it is a little bit repetitive. And honestly, I was struggling with this question because I was looking through my collection. I'm like, okay, most of the palettes that I love don't have repetitive colors. The only other palette that I could think for this category was already in something else that I felt fitted better. So I was like, actually, let's change this up a little bit. I'm gonna show you guys a palette that I love with all of my heart. But if we're being technical, if we're being critical, it might be a little bit repetitive in my collection, and it came further along, so that's why it is where it is. So that's going to be the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. I love this bad boy. I think it is like the prettiest midi palette that Natasha Denona has done. I love the grungy greens. I love the golds that are in here. I love all of it. But like I said, if I'm being realistic, in my collection, this is probably one of the most recent like grungy green palettes that I've purchased. And I do have like the Colored Rain, Safari Rain palette. I have the Ace Beauté, what was that one called? Was it the Tropical Vibes palette? That's like a grungy green, just absolutely stunning color story. I have one from Glamlight. I have the Mel Gemini palette. Like, I have so many color stories that revolve around like this same idea of like this grungy greens, a little pop of warmth, some really pretty greeny golds, and that is what this is. But I still love it. Like, I don't care that it's repetitive in my collection. I still love it. I'm not decluttering it. Like, you can rip it out of my cold dead hands kind of vibes. So yeah, I felt like that kind of fit that category. So the next palette is one that you feel you got your money's worth out of, and I'm gonna have to go with the Natasha Denona Gold Palette because this is one of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. I've reached for it again and again, and it is a little bit more on the expensive side, but when I purchased it, I got it on sale. I have not hit pan on anything in here, but I do have multiple shades that have dips going, and I just love this palette. I feel like I have never went into it and created a look that I didn't like. I did think about putting this as the palette that I love, but is also a little bit repetitive because, like, let's be honest, like this brown, this brown, this brown, not that far off from one another. But at the same time, like, I feel like I still have the rose colored glasses on. I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care if you think those colors are too similar. Like, this is my favorite palette. But yeah, I do feel like I got my money's worth out of this because I do have some other palettes that I feel like I spent like a similar-ish price tag, and I don't love them anywhere near as much as this. Like, for example, the Natasha and Lila palette. I think I've reached for the gold palette hundreds of times more than the Lila. So the next question is a palette that is an amazing deal, and I struggled with this a little bit because I majority of the time buy my palettes full price just because I don't have that much self-control, and normally when I like a palette I buy it right away so I can get content up on it and let you guys know if it was worth the price. So yeah, most things I buy full price, but I was sitting there, I was looking through all my eyeshadow palettes, and something caught my eye because technically I didn't get an amazing deal on it. I received it in PR, but you guys can get an amazing deal on it. It's still available at this price, which I think is so good. I know I've posted about it before, so I just felt like it fits. So that is going to be the Adept Cosmetics Amulet palette. I think this is a really beautiful one. They did end up like reformulating this a little bit and doing some new shades, but I feel like the mattes in here are super nice, easy to blend. The shimmers are beautiful. And if you have wanted to try Adept, I think this is a great one. Originally, this palette retails for $52 and they have it on sale for $36 on their website. And then you can also use an affiliate code to save an extra 10% off, I believe. If you like this color story, I recommend it. There's a shade here called Re, which is like such a pretty kind of like muted multi-chrome. It's got green and purple and silver in it. There's Neffes. I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing that right, but it's kind of like a green, blue, golden multi-chrome. Again, just super stunning, super sparkly. There's the shade Hather, which is more of an iridescent multi-chrome. And it's got like blue, purple, green, pink. Like it's just so pretty. Next is a quad that you love, but you wish was a bigger palette. And I'm cheating a little. This is not a quad. It is a quint. But this is one of my favorite super small palettes of all time. And if there was a larger version of this and it was executed well, it would make me extremely happy. So that is going to be the Natasha Denona Mini Xenon palette, which to me is just like the perfect little cool toned color story, like everything that I need. There is a super stunning silver. I've got some really great grays. You've got a nice deepening black. It's just like the perfect shades, and I love how they are just like true cool tone grays. They're not pulling blue. They're not pulling purple. They're just perfection. And I know that there's like the Glam palette from Natasha Denona, but in my opinion, that actually pulls way more golden than you would think. So I just love the tones of this so much. I wish it was a larger palette. Like I love it as it is. I'm happy with it. But if it was a larger palette, I would also love that. And come on, like this silver is so creamy, so pretty. Like how could I not be obsessed? So the next question is a palette that you love the quality, but you hate the packaging. And I thought this was gonna be easy. Like I sat down, I was looking through my palettes. I'm like, okay, let's look for something that I don't like. And then I realized that I'm just not judgmental about those things. Like I'm looking through all the packaging and I'm like, overall, there's nothing that makes me think like I hate this packaging. Like, yeah, there's things that I gravitate to more, but nothing that I hate. So this is kind of a silly answer, but the only thing that I can think of is a palette that I have like a love-hate relationship with the packaging. So that is going to be the Unearthly Cosmetics Don't Be Jelly palette. Like the packaging aesthetically is so stunning. Like it's so pretty, like inside out, it's gorgeous. But if you know me, I hate jellyfish with my whole heart. Like not in like a I hate them kind of way, but like I don't want to see them. I don't want them near me. Like they just give my whole body the EBGBs, and it's because when I was young, I got stung by a jellyfish. It's awful. And like even just like seeing jellyfish like behind a glass, I'm like, no, like I don't even, like what if that glass broke? I don't like it. I have a fear of jellyfish, I guess you could say. It won't even catch me on the sand if there's a purple flag at the beach. That's all I'm saying. So I think that this is really pretty. Like it's stunning, but also at the same time, like every time I see it, I'm like, ew, jellyfish. So the next question is palettes that you like to combine together. And I watched a few different versions of the tag video, and I liked the two different ways that I saw people going with this question. So I decided to also answer it in two different ways. So in one version, palettes that I like to use, like two palettes that I just use together all the time, I would say I really love combining these two collab palettes. So that's gonna be the Tiny Marvels palette with Mel Thompson and Sydney Grace. It's such a beautiful color story. You've got some neutrals, you've got some pops of green, some pops of some purple, some mauviness. I just love it. And then I also have the Makeup Just for Fun and Odin's Eye Flora Story palette, which is a mixture of purples and greens. And I just really love these two together. I don't know if you guys can see the vision, but I've traveled multiple times where I've just brought these two palettes and I've been so happy, so content. I just feel like they complement each other perfectly. But if we're talking about palettes that I like to combine, as in like palettes that I like to pull out that I mix in with other palettes all the time, but I don't necessarily use them by themselves. So the one that I reach for is going to be the Shroud Cosmetics Creepy Cute palette. This is their OG palette, like the most stunning pastel color story. I just feel like when I want to reach for some pastels, because not every brand does them amazingly, this palette just never leaves me disappointed. It's a go-to. The quality is just everything. So next is a large palette that I wish was smaller, and I actually don't have that many large palettes in my collection, so it made this pretty easy because I feel like I either tend to not buy them or I tend to declutter them. So I'm gonna go with the Be Perfect Cosmetics Carnival 3 Love Tahiti palette in collaboration with Stacey Marie. I'm gonna say this one because I think the quality is pretty good in here. I think the color story is beautiful. Like, I think there's a lot going for it, but it's such a big freaking palette that I literally never reach for this. I always forget about it. Like, I feel like if I need to put this on my desk, it takes up so much space. And also, I don't know if anyone else is like me, but sometimes, even though it might seem obvious, like, oh, I went in with that shade, like, duh, that's the shade that I use. But when I'm not paying attention, when I'm just in the zone doing my makeup, sometimes I'll go in with something and then I like look at a big palette like this where it is a little repetitive, where there's a lot going on of the same thing. And I'm like, wait, what shade did I use? I can't remember. And then like I'll put something on and I'm like, that's not right. And then I'll figure out what was right. And I'm mixing both shades on both of my eyes and it's this whole thing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's happened more than once. So yes, I really like this palette overall, but I think that if there was a smaller version of it, I would be happy. Or I feel like if it was sold in sections, like if you had this green blue section, this kind of like neutral peachy section, you've got some reddy purples, and then this purple section, I feel like I would be happy with buying just this section as a palette and this section as a palette, and I'd be pretty content with it. Last but not least is an eyeshadow palette that you wish had a matching face palette, which I think is cute. It's a fun thing to dream up. I was just looking through all my palettes like, what would this face palette look like? And what would this face palette look like? But I decided to go with the Cleona Cosmetics Dragon Fruit palette, which they did in collaboration with Emily Violet Marie. And I know that they did have some single highlighters, but I was just looking at this palette. I was looking at the packaging. I was thinking of like how it's like this summery, glowy, like vibrant palette. And I was just thinking, can you guys imagine a blush palette that would accompany this and how stunning it would be? I feel like this as a face palette would be all of the summery, glowy vibes. Unfortunately, my palette did actually break a little, which I'm sad because I really love the packaging of this, but it cracked right there out of nowhere. And I've always been really gentle with it, but I feel like this shade Fruit Fuzz like would be such a beautiful blush, but it's pretty tiny, so it's kind of hard to get a blush brush in there. There's Strawberry Pear. Like, tell me this doesn't give blush vibes. This is Refresh, and then here is Dragantini, which is a little bit more of a multi-chrome, but they're all stunning. So there's what those all look like swatched out. All right, y'all, so that was everything for this eyeshadow palette tag. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.